Good morning, students. Since we are still in lockdown period, I thought of making another video and sending it to you so that you could learn something more. And we are still in lockdown 4. So take care of yourself and also try to learn, make use of this free time. And today we shall discuss the second chapter in history, that is growth of nationalism. Now we should first understand the meaning of the word nationalism. What does nationalism mean? What do we understand by nationalism? So in a simple words, the nationalism is a feeling of oneness. Nationalism means a sense of belonging among a group of people, emerging as a result of people sharing a common political, historical and cultural background. So these people who feel one, who feel belonging to one another, they have a common political, historical and cultural background. They have a common language and they have common value systems, and they consider themselves as one nation. This is in short what nationalism means. And this nationalism started emerging in India, especially in the 19th century, after the First War of Independence, 1857. This nationalism was lacking among the people of India prior to the First War of Independence, 1857. So now we will discuss the factors, the causes that are responsible for the growth of nationalism. There are several factors, but we shall discuss some of the very important factors that have helped the growth of nationalism in India in 19th century. The first factor is the economic exploitation of all sections of people. So the British people, the East India Company exploited all the Indians. So exploitation of all sections of Indian society. And who are these people? The peasants, the artisans, craftsmen, the working class, the educated class. This is what we mean by all sections of people. They are the peasants, the craftsmen, artisans, working class and educated Indians. And how did the company exploit each of them? The East India Company and the British exploited the peasants by taking away a large portion of their produce in the form of revenue and other taxes. So very little was left with the peasants, and they heavily depended on the borrowing from the moneylenders and zamindars. But the much of their produce went to the British, the East India Company. That way, the peasants were exploited. The craftsmen, artisans were also exploited by the East India Company because the economic policies of the East India Company was against Indian industry and Indian people. The East India Company imported all the finished goods, all the machine-made goods from England and dumped those finished goods in Indian market. As a result, what the craftsmen, artisans made and sold in Indian market could not be sold. In other words, the products of the craftsmen, artisans could not compete with the machine-made goods coming from England. As a result, most of the craftsmen, artisans lost their job because their product did not have demand in the market. The working class was exploited by the British because we had a few industries, few mills, few factories in India, and the owners of mills and factories were mostly British people. And these British people exploited working class by making them work for longer hours and paying them the minimum wages. That way, the working class also was exploited. What about the educated Indians? The educated Indians who received the English education, who received education, but they could not get jobs because the jobs were not created in India. The educated Indians thought that the British would make India like England, where jobs will be available. But that did not happen. As a result, the educated Indians also were disappointed. So these are some of the ways how the people of India were exploited economically. The second reason is repressive colonial policies of British. See, British people or the East India Company defeated, conquered India in order to promote their own interest. They wanted to exploit the resources of India. They wanted to exploit even the people of India. Therefore, all their policies were in their favor and against the interest of Indian people. So that way, the policies they formed were repressive. They exploited people. So like the policies like Organization of Delhi Darbar 1877. What is this Delhi Darbar 1877? In 1877, the Queen Victoria was proclaimed the Empress of India. And on this proclamation of Queen Victoria as Empress of India, huge amount of Indian money was spent. Who has spent? The British government. The British people spent, and that money belonged to this country. And they ignored the sufferings of a large part of the population of this country who were badly hit and affected by famine. In other words, on the one hand, many Indians were starving. They were hungry. On the other hand, the British spent lavishly on proclaiming Queen Victoria as Empress of India. It was an eye-opening for many of the Indians who understood that the British really did not care the people of India. They did not want to remove poverty from India. So that was one policy. The Vernacular Press Act and Arms Act. Now the Vernacular Press Act. Here the act was passed which allowed the English paper to publish whatever they wanted. They could publish even articles, any materials against the government also. But the vernacular press, the newspapers that are in our Indian languages, they were not allowed to write any materials that would speak against the British government, that would incite against the East India Company. So that way, the Vernacular Press Act was also suppressive. Then you have the Arms Act. See, the Arms Act was passed in order to stop Indian people from carrying any arms. This was an offense, criminal offense for Indian to carry any arms. On the other hand, the British people could carry arms without license. Whereas Indians had to have license if they wanted to carry any arms. That was the Arms Act. So Arms Act also was oppressive, was suppressive, also repressive. One bill was introduced, that is called Ilbert Bill. This Ilbert, his name is C.P. Ilbert. He was a low member of the Viceroy's Council, a good man. And he introduced that bill which is called Ilbert Bill. And he wanted to provide sort of equality between the Indian magistrate and the European magistrate. In other words, he wanted that there should not be any discrimination as far as judiciary is concerned in India. The Indian magistrate should have the same power, the European magistrate should have the same power. So what the practice was, the European magistrate could try any accused Indian. The European magistrate could try also any accused Englishman or European. On the other hand, the Indian magistrate could try only the accused Indians. They had no right to try an accused Englishman or European. So he wanted to do away with this discrimination. So he introduced Ilbert Bill, which gave the equal power to Indian magistrate and the European magistrate. But this bill was rejected. All the Europeans, all the Englishmen opposed this bill. That also opened the eyes of Indians. They realized that the British people do not want equality. They want to keep the Indians their subordinates. So that way, the Ilbert Bill, although it was in favor of Indians, was rejected. Then the reduction of the maximum age limit for ICS examination. So earlier, to take part in the Indian civil service examinations, one should be maximum, the upper age limit was 21. So some of the Indians took part in the Indian civil service examinations, they qualified, but later on this maximum age limit was reduced from 21 to 19. Certainly this was not in favor of the Indians. This was to deprive many Indians from participating in the Indian civil service examination. So that was also suppressive, that was also repression. So these are some of the repressive policies formulated by the British, which opened the eyes of Indians, which made Indians realize that British were not really to help the Indians and to make this country become a better country.